On this episode of Attack of the Unsolved Killer Mysteries podcast, Edward Scissorhands tries to solve the crime of Jack the Ripper. We also investigate not why a cult in the middle of nowhere committed ritual suicide, but instead what is up with that ridiculous bandana worn by one of the documentarians. And last, we'll uncover a cannibal and a necrophile who wears women's skin, who has better fashion sense than most of the people in the 70s. All that and more on this episode of Attack, the Unsolved Killer Mysteries podcast. Mysteries.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer podcast. 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 Time for the show. Yay.
Hello, one and all, to another episode of Attack of the Killer podcast. I am your host, Insane Mike. No, I am not Robert Stack. I had you convinced, didn't I?
Whoa.
This is episode 226 that we are calling True Crime Horror. This show, we will be discussing horror films that take inspiration from true crime. I didn't want to do like biopics for this one. I mostly wanted to cover films that were kind of more inspired by or continued stories from different true events. So these are clearly works of fiction and do not try to go into the actual historic facts. If this is your first time listening to our show, let me tell you what Attack of the Killer podcast is all about. We are a horror movie podcast where a group of friends get together. We talk about horror movies within a specific topic. We talk openly and freely as if we're just all hanging out. So there's probably going to be spoilers. Just saying. If you like the show and you want even more Attack of the Killer podcast in your life, go to jointheattackers.com. At jointheattackers.com, you can become an official attacker. I bet you're asking yourself, what does it mean to become an official attacker? Well, what it means to become an official attacker is you become a supporter of the show, and you can get all kinds of perks and goodies by becoming a supporter of the show. You can get an official membership card and certificate. You can also get one of Mikey's monsters, which is a drawing I do of you as a monster of my choice. There are also bonus episodes, special videos, video series such as Killer Critiques and Insane Mike's 1 minute top 10 list, all that and so much more. And you can see all that by going to jointheattackers.com today. Pick from the various tiers to get the goodies that you want to get more killer podcast in your life. All the money goes back into making the show bigger and better for you. So it's just like you're giving yourself money.
Thanks, you.
So again, become an official attacker by going to jointheattackers.com. And now it's time to introduce you to the podcast crew. I warn you, most of these jokes are about serial killers, but don't worry, they will be properly executed.
Yep. Here we go.
They say one out of every group of friends has the potential to be a serial killer. That's why he threw Jeff off a cliff just in case it was him. Tad, everybody!
This might be the first time you've properly executed anything.
He once was a serial killer who sat on people's faces until they suffocated. He was known as the asphyxiator. Jason!
Thanks. Are you saying I have a big butt?
I cannot lie. There was a serial killer loose in his town that only killed good-looking people. So I'm happy to know he's safe. Andy, everybody!
Yeah.
Love you, buddy.
I just killed you like 5 times in my head.
That must mean he's good looking.
That's right. 5 times?
Not when I'm done with him.
Attack of the Killer podcast is sponsored by the amazing streaming service known as Shudder. Shudder is the Netflix for horror fans with movies, podcasts, series, documentaries, and original programming. Shudder is the horror fan's wet dream. And if you have not signed up yet for Shudder and need more proof, you could try a month of Shudder for free thanks to us here at Attack of the Killer Podcast. All you gotta do is enter our promo code AOTKP, and you can get a free month of Shudder from us here at Attack of the Killer Podcast.
That sounds really easy.
It is easy. Just go there and put in the promo code AOTKP. And why? Because we love you.
No.
Speaking of love, I would love nothing more but to turn it over to Tad with what we watched.
All right, we're here in the new year, and so we're going to be sort of going over what we've watched since we reviewed our 2020. So I'm going to kick it over to Andy. What have you watched?
Well, I was able to watch a lot during Christmas break. Not necessarily horror, but I binged Cobra Kai season 3.
You would.
I did too.
Loved it. Let's see. I also was able to catch Wonder Woman 84.
I did too.
You know, in terms of superhero movies, it came across as like, you know, just it was like dry white toast. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I felt like I needed something more. I mean, it was just, don't get me wrong, I like toast, but it was just, it was just too plain.
I have problems, but I think I'll probably just keep them to myself.
I also have VHS. I watched a movie called Stuff Stephanie into the Incinerator.
Ooh, trauma movie.
Yeah. Weird. That's all I'm going to say.
With a title like that, hard to believe.
I remember watching it back in the day. I think, isn't it like some like S&M couple doing like these weird sex fantasies or something?
But they have like, but the whole thing is like just to like fuck with the viewer, I think.
Yeah.
I was just like, whatever.
It fits on this episode because about, you know, true crime, and this is Andy and Danielle. So
the other one I had was Vinegar Syndrome. I watched a movie called Don't Panic about a Ouija board experimentation thing gone wrong. It wasn't bad. It was actually kind of hilarious to watch this Alex Winter lookalike run around in dinosaur pajamas. It's worth a watch. It's unique. I watched a lot of weird shit. Next one I watched was Ghost House, which is
nice.
It's kind of takes its cues from like a little bit from Poltergeist with a possessed clown doll, where this Undertaker used to have this house, and it's different. It was on a Scream Factory double feature with Witchery, and I had watched Witchery with David Hasselhoff and Linda Blair. I just never got around to Ghost House, and I finally got that out of the way. It's not bad. It's low budget, but you know, it's worth a watch.
Perfect double feature. I could not think of another movie that could be paired with that one as well as Witchery.
Right. Another one that I watched, and it's a slasher movie that I had not seen yet, and it's from 1980. It's called Don't Answer the Phone, He'll Know You're Alone. And it's just about this Vietnam veteran serial killer, and he's basically stalking and killing women. It's not hyper violent per se, but the guy does a really good job of like acting like crazy. He's got like this one like sort of Taxi Driver-esque scene where he's like just talking to nothing, and it's just hilarious. You know how he's like, he's got like these delusions of grandeur because he kills all these women, and
it sounds like a real laugh riot.
Yeah, it's hysterical, but it's I'm dead serious. It's actually pretty damn funny the way he does it. But yeah, it's worth a watch if you're into, old slasher flicks like I am. Have you guys ever heard of this one?
I know the title. I've never seen the movie.
No, sir.
Yeah, it's from Scorpion releasing, but I think like maybe Arrow released it as well. But anyway, that's what I was going to talk about. I will pass it over to whoever. I guess I'll pass it to Tad because he's doing the passing.
Yeah, it's my segment. All right, buddy. Let's go over to Mike. What did you watch?
Okay, well, he already brought up Wonder Woman 84. We watched that on New Year's, and again, like I said, I have my issues with it. So I'll talk about what we watched on Christmas Day. We did a nice, great, fun movie marathon on Christmas Day. So we started with Home Alone. Got to start with that, which oddly has a connection to a movie in this episode of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Then we watched Elf, and we followed that up with, because like I think I annoyed Brandy the whole time of like shouting out trivia about Elf through the whole movie. So we ended up having to watch the Movies That Made Us episode on Elf, where I got most of my trivia from.
I watched it too with the Chiodos, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's a great episode because you'll learn a lot about what they did with a lot of those forced perspective shots. With him against the elves, which is awesome. And then we followed it up with, which might become one of my new Christmas traditions for films, is a documentary called Jingle Bell Rocks, which is a movie. I was just obsessing about this documentary. I'd seen it like 3 or 4 times now, and I was obsessing about it on Christmas Day, telling Brandy about it, and she got all excited. So luckily we found it on Amazon, and it's a documentary because it used to be on Hulu and then they took it off, and I'm like, oh, I'll never find it again. I found it on Amazon, and it's a documentary about people who collect Christmas music, like just obsessively collecting Christmas music, like going through every bin in some like mom pop record store, in boxes of LPs shoved underneath a table, and just digging through looking for just any and all Christmas music, but the more obscure and the weirder the better. And there's actually some really kick-ass music in the movie as well. It's like 2 or 3 different like music collectors and kind of following them around as they are trying to collect Christmas music. And the filmmaker is kind of the main focus of the documentary. It's just a cool documentary, especially if you're a person that likes to collect music, physical media music. And then we followed that up with Greasy Strangler, because I finally got her to watch Greasy Strangler.
Perfect Christmas movie.
Exactly. Well, it was a deal. Like, she would watch Greasy Strangler if we would rewatch again for the 100th time Microwave Massacre. So we followed Greasy Strangler up with Microwave Massacre, which was awesome. And that is very fitting to Christmas because John Vernon is the voice of Frosty the Snowman, the star of Microwave Massacre. Anyway, that's what I watched on Christmas.
All right. I guess that leaves you, Jason. What have you watched?
I don't know about you guys, but after the super crunch of trying to fit in all them movies for 2020, there was a part of me that just about forgot to watch new stuff. Like, I don't know, that between that and all the football. But anyway, I definitely watched Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas, and I think y'all are crazy. It's pretty great. I like it a lot. Kristen Wiig in anything is awesome, and thought she was great.
It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, but the other one I watched, I had a freaking super blast with. It is on HBO Max. The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?
I've heard that's really good.
Yeah, it was damn good. It's directed by Frank Marshall, and it's like an hour and 50 minutes of awesomeness. I mean, I could proudly say even before I freaking love the Bee Gees, and even more now than ever. So they're amazing, and I learned so much. I mean, it really is educational and definitely gives you all the feels. It is fantastic. Really great doc. That's what I watched.
Someone asked me.
Yo, Ted.
I watched a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to blast through it. I don't even remember the last time we did what we watched, so I'm going to start with my holiday watches. I watched the Creepshow Holiday Special, which is a blast with Adam Pawley. I watched Happiest Season on Hulu, which is a Kristen Stewart and Aubrey Plaza, and it has just so many lovely actresses in it. It's a lesbian Christmas romance comedy, really, really good, really funny. I watched Sound of Metal, where you talked about it on the previous episode. It's I thought you had seen it. Had you seen it?
Was that me?
Someone had watched it. Maybe
that's
not. But
the drummer that's losing
that goes
his hearing?
deaf. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's on Prime, and holy shit, that's great. That will be up for several Oscars. It might be a little too close to home for you, Jason. Might scare the shit out of you if you haven't seen it.
I haven't.
But basically, this dude in like a hardcore band one day is setting up merch with his band, and he can't hear anymore. So he goes to the doctor, and he's also a recovering heroin addict. So he is struggling not to jump back on that, and it just sort of tells his journey of trying to regain his hearing and what his hearing means to him as a musician. And really, really great movie. Jumping to the next one is the opposite end of the spectrum, A Recipe for Seduction, starring Mario Lopez as the Colonel Sanders.
Oh my God, that Lifetime movie?
Yes, it's fantastic. The best 15-minute Lifetime movie you'll watch after you listen to this.
That is insane.
It's actually very tongue-in-cheek. It knows what it's doing.
I would hope so.
It's actually pretty well made, and I have mad love for like what Lifetime's doing, because those guys crank out like 100 movies a year, and they employ all these people, and from craft services to grips to everybody, and they keep a town in Canada alive for year round just because making these movies. So good for them. Watched a classic Silent Night, Deadly Night with my man Colby Key from the Gore Score, and he jumped on my podcast and we talked about it. I visited the Black Christmas new Blumhouse 2019 version for the first time. Interesting. I did not really enjoy the supernatural element, but otherwise I enjoyed the performances and thought it was a interesting twist on that story. I watched a Muppet Family Christmas, my favorite of the Muppet Christmas specials, because it's a crossover with Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock, and that is fucking awesome. Something I've watched. And you can watch it on YouTube with all of the original commercials from its original airing in 1987. So it's so cool to watch with the commercials. Then, of course, I watched the 2006 Black Christmas, another great, fantastic Christmas horror movie I love. I love all of them are good. I obviously loved the original the most, but I do enjoy the 2006 version. I watched the other Bob Clark, or is it Bob Clark? Yeah, A Christmas Story.
Yep.
From '83. I watched the Chiodo's new movie Alien Xmas on Netflix. That was a whole lot of fun. Really cool stop motion alien Christmas story from our friends that were behind Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Watch it just so that Netflix will make a new movie with them. Krampus, watch that one. Always a yearly tradition. Watch Home Alone again. Can't say enough. I am in love with that movie. I'll watch it every year until I'm dead. I watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I watched Pixar's new movie Soul. It did not make me cry like I thought it would, but it was still really, really good. A very deep story about a musician trying to find his meaning to life. And fantastic. I watched Amazon's new movie Uncle Frank, which I thought was really, really fantastic. It has Paul Bettany and Sophia Lillis. Sophia was the redhead from the new It movies. And I could see her being up for some awards in this. She plays like a college student who grew up with a uncle that she absolutely loved, and when she goes to college, he's a professor there. She finds out that he's gay, and this is set, I think, in like the 70s, so it was not as openly accepted now. So when she finds out her uncle's gay, it sort of flips everything on its head. And very, very good story, not horror at all. So I'll move on. I watched The Owners, so Dustin Neal will be happy. Off his list. That was a lot of fun. I think it's on Hulu now. And I watched Death to 2020 on Netflix. It's a mockumentary about how shitty the year 2020 was. It's very funny. And I watched Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny for the first time. Ooh. So I got that off the list. Wow. Yeah. So all 50 of those movies
you
are what
watched
I watched.
Everything.
Yeah. Oh, and I watched Cobra Kai, and we're on the last episode of the new Saved by the Bell reboot on Peacock. I highly recommend that if you're a fan of the original Saved by the Bell. It is a blast. Nice. And I've been getting through the new season of Sabrina, almost done with that too. So I did a lot of sitting.
Go to work?
Yeah, wow.
No, I didn't actually. I get 2 days off for Christmas, 2 days off for New Year, so I had 2 4-day weekends in a row.
I also want to add that me and the wife watched Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas as well.
It's a good one.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. I just mostly stuck with what I watched on Christmas Day, but I want to throw this one out here because it just popped in my head. Have you guys seen any of the episodes of the new Korean horror series on Netflix called Sweet Home?
It looks batshit crazy.
It is batshit crazy. Brandy got me hooked on it. She started watching it and then told me about it. So we started back over from episode 1. We haven't gotten through it all yet because we'll start it when it's late and we fall asleep and you have to pay attention because it's all subtitled. But the creatures in it, it's almost like a zombie show, but instead of becoming zombies when you get infected, you become your body's just like morph into these like weird contortions of like monsters, but yet still kind of in human form. But like there's this one that was attacking these kids through their window of their apartment. It was a giant eyeball that was on this like super long extended neck with just a regular human body at the end of it, and they cut the neck off and the body's still moving around. So it's like you can't kill these things either. That's the craziest part about it. But I just love the look of these monsters in this show and the way they move. I mean, it's CGI'd, but I think it works to its advantage because there's an unnatural flow to the movement of these things that, kind of harkens back to like, Shaky Ghosts kind of stuff.
So it's basically kind of like the Frankenhooker parts coming out of the freezer and attacking you, right?
Kinda, but it's still so beyond supernatural in the fact that it's a human body morphing into this thing, but like
more like fantasy.
Yeah, way more. It's definitely way more fantasy because there's no physical way that a human body can morph into what some of these creatures look like. There's just not enough mass to go from a normal human size to like this 7-foot hulking creature and stuff like that.
It looked like Tokyo Gore Police to me.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite as gory as Tokyo Gore Police, and there's definitely a lot more drama. It's like they tried to do stuff like Tokyo Gore Police, but add in more of the drama that you get out of Walking Dead. But what I've seen so far, I recommend it. I'll have to give you guys an update if we get around to finishing it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so now you guys at home can have a voice on the show. You can do that by taking our poll. You guys are in a position to cast your vote in our poll. Now, if we had a name for this, let me think. I know, Tally Time. How about Tally Time?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if that works.
Okay.
Oh, duh. The answer was right in front of me all along. I feel dumb. Here's Jason with position poll.
I still think it's
Oh.
close. I don't think that's it.
I give up. Just go with pole position then.
From now on, like your parents were, you are the secret force of pole position.
All right, pole position. Yes, that's way better, Mike. Okay, so on this episode of Pole Position, we are asked the question: who to you is your most fascinating serial killer? Who are you drawn to? Not that there's not a favorite, but like, who do you find the most interesting? Mike, you go first.
Well, mine's going to be boring and obvious because if you've listened to the show at any length of time,
Trapper Keeper.
exactly. You know, when I was in high school, I had a picture of Ed Gein on my Trapper Keeper. How I did not end up in counseling or expelled from school. It was the 80s. They didn't give a shit back then. But yes, so I'm going to go with my most obvious answer, the one I've always been the most fascinated with, and that is Ed Gein. I think just because like he's inspired so many great movies, though.
That would be your why. You're drawn to him.
The biggest why. That, and there's like, I'm not excusing anything the man has done. He's a monster, but there's also like this like innocence about him that I just don't. There was that part of his brain that was missing that had a complete disconnect of what he was doing wasn't right, that he didn't realize he was doing anything wrong.
Huh. Yeah. That definitely comes across in the movies about him too. And
yeah.
All right, well, I'll go next. For me, it's I guess he was my gateway serial killer as a kid, and I don't know,
Gateway to what?
I know, just we all have gone through the phase of researching and looking into serial killers and all that, and when Jeffrey Dahmer came on the scene, he was the one for me, the Milwaukee cannibal, the Milwaukee monster, they say. It was like, I don't know, it was my first introduction to cannibalism, and just his story is crazy, and you know he's a pretty big deal at the time. So,
well, within our lifetime, I mean, obviously,
yeah,
you and I were around during the Manson stuff, but obviously too young to have any recollection or pay attention to it. So I feel like Dahmer is like the one within our lifetime that we saw in our face on the news and you know, on the tabloids and the newspaper and stuff. It was like the first killer that was, for us anyway, that, you know, was really in the spotlight. That was in the news and whatnot.
Yep, he was sentenced in February of 1992. So for us, it was the end of high school, and
yeah,
yep,
and got his brains caved in 2 years later.
Yep, sure did. All right, Tad, who are you? What about you?
I think I was, like when we talked about doing this, I was very clear about saying favorite, because this guy is to me, the biggest monster of all time. I'm going with Albert Fish, and I did a lot of research on him when I was, I think, in like high school or college, and like you said, everybody sort of goes through a true crime phase, and this guy kept popping up, and he's also, I think, featured briefly in Captain Spaulding's Murder Ride, but this guy is totally fucked. I mean, he was a cannibal, a rapist, he targeted children in the 20s and 30s, and beyond that, he also was very much into self-mutilation. They did some x-rays of him, and he had 29 needles lodged in his pelvic region. He would put wool doused with lighter fluid into his ass and set it on fire.
Wow.
Yeah, and
my biscuits are burning.
Yeah, he was just not there, man. And he would, eat children. And like I remember, I think Ed Gein was like everybody's sort of like oh man, he's the guy who's inspired a million horror movies and he ate people and did this stuff. And then I read about Albert Fish and I'm like, God, Ed Gein would probably be scared of this guy. Like,
Yeah, he's a whole nother level.
right. Doing it to kids is a whole different thing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. It's just, there's not any kind of good thing about this guy. I mean, he said during his trial that he murdered a kid in every state, which people don't know if that's ever true or not. And he said that he murdered over 100 kids and ate several of them, and yeah, just a true piece of shit. But his story is just mind blowing. I think it's just so unbelievable. That is why it's always been so fascinating to me.
But and I'm not trying to steal your thunder here, Tad, but there's also that letter he wrote to the family of the girl that he ate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so disgusting. It's so just reprehensible just to what he tells what he did to this little girl, and he just wrote it back to this family, and it's just it's fucking sick.
Yeah, Grace,
it's disgusting.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, what about you?
The one that I find very fascinating is John Wayne Gacy. Here you have like just a typical Midwestern kid. He was an effeminate boy, and his dad was an alcoholic, and his dad just, anything that he ever did was never good enough for his dad. His dad would just beat the piss out of him, and he was, I think he was probably obviously homosexual, growing up, but he didn't want to admit it because that would just be another failure to his father. And then he gets his head bumped on a swing. So I mean, you've got like a perfect, like, this psychological cocktail of brain trauma and this cycle of abuse and this self-loathing because he will not admit that he's a homosexual. And this led him to, like, I think that really led him to just spiral out of control. And a lot of people know, there's like 33, bodies of dead, essential rape victims in the crawl space of his house in Chicago. But another thing that I find very fascinating is he had this very big drive for, he wanted acceptance, so because he was always, he ran restaurants and he was part of the JCs. He was very involved politically in the Democratic, Party. This is a serial killer who, he moonlighted at night by either kidnapping, young boys off the street by posing as a police officer, raping and killing them, burying them in his basement, and then during the day he'd be getting pictures taken with Rosalind Carter, the first lady, and then aside from that, he'd go out, kill at night, kill and rape at night, bury a body in his basement, and then the next day he'd be dressed up as a clown at a children's hospital entertaining, sick children. And another thing that I pointed out when I read this book, The Man Who Killed Boys, this character Pogo the Clown, that when they put the smile on, they paint the smile on the grease paint, it's supposed to have round edges, so as it's not too frighten, because it almost looks like teeth, if you don't, if you put them up to a point. He never had round edges around his mouth; they were always up to a point. So I mean, it's just like it reading that just made like the image as if it wasn't creepy enough. Just reading that and seeing the actual pictures of Gacy in all the grease paint, and you just see like all these pointed edges on his smile, and just you see him waving. It's just like it's a very eerie feeling to look at him after reading that, because professional clowns say you got to have round edges. Every one of the pictures that was ever taken of him has a point to his mouth. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on Gacy.
Did you see the biopic Gacy starring Chubby from the Teen Wolf movies?
Yes, I've seen that one, and I also saw To Catch a Killer with Brian Dennehy, and it scared the living shit out of me when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pole position. You, like Mike said, can take part in the show and get your butts over to Twitter at AOTKP and vote for who you think picked the best one. Who's your not favorite, but who you interested in these crazy psychos? Yeah, that's pole position.
Sweet. Man, after that discussion, I'm like, and I was second guessing this topic, starting the new year off with this dark topic. And now I'm really second guessing it. But we sally forth. So it's films time here on the show. Andy, what's our first film we're going to discuss for true crime horror?
Well, let me first start this off by saying the attackers are the men who will not be blamed for nothing. Our first film comes from 2001, and it's called From Hell.
Inspector, I know your reputation for making brilliant guesses that turn out to be right. Someone told me you claim to dream the answers.
Sometime this evening, a bank teller was murdered in George Yard.
That doesn't sound much out of the ordinary.
It was the way she was done, Inspector. It was the way that she was done that cries out for a man of your talent.
He can foresee the victims.
I saw her. I saw her face.
Your vision's about me.
Most definitely.
You know, they used to burn men like you alive.
He could sense the suspects.
He must be someone with money.
And how do you know that?
This ain't killing for profit. This is ritual.
But for an inspector in charge of the world's most infamous investigations,
he's punishing them. I want double shifts within this area.
you'll have mayhem on the streets.
I believe this was done by someone with a working knowledge of dissection.
An educated man, that's preposterous. The last thing he expected
I want you and your friends off the streets until I can sort this thing out.
I do trust you.
was to get close to someone who would be next.
Jack the Ripper's not finished.
Where is he?
I want you.
One day, men will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century.
You're not going to see the 20th century.
This film is by the Hughes brothers, which is a step away from them because you're used to seeing them write and direct, urban crime dramas like Menace to Society and Dead Presidents. They also did Book of Eli. But this particular film is based on the graphic novel from Alan Moore, and some of you. Well, you should know him because he's responsible for some of the best graphic novels of the past 40 years.
Here comes comic book nerd Mike.
I can agree with that.
You've got Watchmen. You've got V for Vendetta. He wrote for Constantine, Swamp Thing.
Yeah, his run on Swamp Thing is still the pinnacle run of that of any Swamp Thing comic.
And I just got like the big omnibus in today. So yeah,
Nice.
it's I'm looking at it right now. This always happens. I always have a podcast when some like really cool shit comes in. I've got to talk to you bozos for 4 hours. Okay. Anyway, let's get back on track here. From Hell. Excuse me. It's in 1980. in 1888 London. It's in the district of Whitechapel, which is like the poorest and really the shittiest part of the city. Prostitutes are forced to work the streets in order to eat and basically have shelter, among the everyday threats they have to face, turning, tricks. They also have to pay for protection from the Nickel Street gang, to keep their asses from being beat, which if they don't pay, they get their asses beat, which is, catch-22. To add to their problems, a prostitute named Anne is kidnapped, and they are linked to a conspiracy that goes all the way to the royal family. After the kidnapping, prostitutes begin to be systematically slaughtered and mutilated in brutal fashion. Inspector Frederick Aberline, played by Johnny Depp, is assigned to the case. His partner, Peter Godley, played by Robbie Coltrane, does his best to assist Aberline and keep him off the opium as bodies begin to pile up. The premise of this story is that Prince Albert of the royal family has had a child with the gal that has been kidnapped, and he's also contracted syphilis from her, and he's basically slowly losing his mind. The problem is we don't see this happen during the film. We just basically see him getting laid, and then they cart him away. The atmosphere of this film is really good, but according to history, I've got some problems. I do. It's first of all, Heather Graham was miscast. I mean, I like her in other stuff, but she was not supposed to be in this movie.
Well,
first of all,
I don't buy her as Irish.
Exactly.
That hair look was like so unnaturally red.
Well, it looked too damn good. She's a prostitute who has to live on the street. She's too clean. She's too, it's just like they were selling us eye candy in a situation where there's not supposed to be eye candy. Okay.
Yeah. You got a point. 'Cause like all the other prostitutes in this movie are rather homely looking.
Yes.
Except for her.
Yes, exactly. I mean, she's top of the line. What would, she would be like a blue chip, as DiCaprio would say in The Wolf of Wall Street, compared to the NASDAQs. But another thing, this theory of this surgeon who's part of the Freemasons he's a Freemason surgeon that's killing. He's basically Jack the Ripper. And he's responsible for the Whitechapel murders, and the royal family sanctioned all these murders to cover up Prince Albert's, mistake. So, this child, that's not born of royal ilk or whatever, they need to cover this up. And so they hire the Freemasons and this psycho doctor to kill all these prostitutes. But I really have a problem with this because, you've already had your goons round up one prostitute and made her disappear. Why not just keep doing that? Okay? Why would you ask a 70-something physician who just had a stroke to go carry out murders? I don't get that plot, like, at all. They said that this theory was first suggested in, I did a little research, bear with me. This theory was first suggested in a 1976 novel, Jack the Ripper, The Final Solution, by a guy named Stephen Knight. And he was also assisted by an English painter by the name of Walter Sickert. But and the information that he got this from was a guy named Joseph Gorman, who claimed to be Sickert's illegitimate son. Later on, Gorman came forth and said, yeah, that's all bullshit. I made it up. Patricia Cornwell also wrote a book called Jack the Ripper, Case Closed, and she believes that Sickert was responsible for for the murders, but people aren't convinced of that either. Yeah, it's just the whole William Gohl, which was
Always the
Roy-
Freemasons.
yeah, the Freemason surgeon, the royal surgeon played by Ian Holm, who played wasn't he Bilbo in Lord of the Rings?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't buy that. It's also said the beginning quote, it was like never said that the quote in the beginning of the movie. It's from the Alan Moore novel. I mean, yeah, it works for the novel, but he, when you put it up there just as a quote, like Jack the Ripper said it, people are going to think that he actually said that shit. But he never wrote that in any of the letters. He said that men will look back and say that I gave birth to the 20th century. Yeah, never said that. It was in the novel, but he never said that in like any of the letters that he wrote to the police.
Because this isn't a documentary.
Well,
this is just a fantasized version, and that's why it's okay, right?
Okay, I will just. I'm sorry. I've read a lot of books on this. Is just what I'm saying. So I mean, I was glad I was chosen for this. The Ripper is kind of like the OG of writing letters to the press too. I mean, Zodiac just made it look cooler. From Hell, our title is actually from the letter he sent to George Lusk, who was leader of a vigilante committee, and it was authenticated because he said he would cut out the kidney from one of his victims, and with that letter came part of a kidney. The original canonical 5 of these prostitutes that were killed was, the first one was Marianne Nichols, the second was Annie Chapman, the second one, the third and fourth one, which took place on the same night, 15 minutes away from each other, which is why they believe he had an accomplice, was Elizabeth Stride, also known as Long Liz, and Catherine Eddowes. The last one, Mary Jane Kelly, who was actually murdered, not Heather Graham's character who snuck off to Ireland with the illegitimate kid. Yeah, Mary Jane Kelly literally looked like she jumped on a grenade. That's how bad she was just mutilated in this room. It was just horrific. Also, Aberline was middle-aged and balding. He was not an alcoholic or a druggie in real life. He did not see visions. And Alan Moore has gone on quote and saying, yeah, he didn't dress like a dandy, and if he had a haircut like that, basically the London police probably would have kicked the shit out of him. Anyway, I'm foaming at the mouth here. You guys go ahead.
Well, real quick, did you ever read Alan Moore's book?
I haven't had a chance, but I did not read The Final Solution either, but I did read Patricia Cornwell's book, Case Closed, and her assumption was that the paper used on the authenticated letters from the Ripper to the police and the press matched like the fibers from Sickert's personal collection. And he also did paintings that were eerily reminiscent of Ripper crime scenes. And he had like literally no way of being able to see these crime scenes. So, and yes, I would love to read Alan Moore's.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've never read it either, but I've just always been under the assumption of like, this is, because From Hell at the end of the day is a comic book. So graphic novel. Okay. Calm down. But I just always been under the assumption, and I may be wrong, like this is just Alan Moore's fanfic of the Jack the Ripper story.
Like how Tarantino retells history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's his version of the royal physician killing these women, because this royal physician later on, after the last murder, I think he went into a mental asylum. He eventually, he went away. So It's from The Final Solution and the 1988 Ripper miniseries with Michael Caine. They basically follow the same storyline. It was a very popular theory until, of course, Gorman came out and said, "Yeah, I made all that shit up."
I figured when he asked you if you had read the novel yet, you were going to say, well, no, I got a really awesome copy of it. I'm looking right at it. And I had to record this podcast, so I can't read it.
No. Yeah, I have other books that they're upstairs in my library, but I can't. I don't know who. I can't fire them off the top of my head, but I know I've read the Patricia Cornwell book, and yeah, there were many suspects out there that are very popular, and yeah, I mean it's just one of those really romanced cases. I mean, they think of it as it was like this great romantic time, but in reality, it was such a huge gap in between classes because there was an industrial revolution during the time in London, and you were either a freaking baller up here, or you were just dirt ass poor. There was really no middle class, and the really dirt poor, lived in Whitechapel. And there's been other theories about, the people who couldn't even afford to live in Whitechapel were living in the sewers in the London Underground, and that's speculated how most of the time the Ripper was able to get away through these catacombs underneath London.
So from hell, Jason, what did you think of the movie?
Well, I was I know I had to have seen it when it came out.
Didn't we see this in the theater together?
You're probably right, because I mean I remembered it, but watching it again, I'm like, man, this is really cool. It has such a amazing comic book look and style to it. That's really cool. I mean, nowadays you could damn near call it Tim Burton-y in its gothicness. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was really cool about it, and
its depthness.
In its depthness, exactly. I see what you're saying about Heather Graham, but I thought she was great, and it's a neat little fan fiction version of what could have happened, I guess. And I don't know, I thought it was neat that someone wrote answers to all the questions, and made it make sense in a way that could have made sense.
Well, it's funny you sort of say that like Tim Burton thing, because this came out like 2001, right around that time where he was in, where Depp was in Sleepy Hollow, and it's very much that same sort of era and that look of Depp and that look of the film, where not quite as stylized as a Tim Burton movie, but definitely of its time. We got Hagrid in here with Coltrane. I'm like, oh, that's Hagrid, as soon as I saw him. But I remember thinking this came out when I was a freshman in high school, so it was like, thought it was totally badass. I was just getting into horror, and this was a new movie, and Heather Graham was awesome from Boogie Nights and all that stuff. And Depp at the time was in his prime. Everybody loved a good Johnny Depp movie. So
you got all addicted to absinthe. Just
exactly,
loved it.
Exactly.
Didn't he just blow maybe not literally blow, but the movie, but he did blow about a year earlier, didn't he?
Yeah, I just remember I actually have a physical copy of this from when our Blockbuster closed down, if that says anything, a DVD copy. But I remember this was like one of the earlier true crimes style movies I saw. And of course, obviously, Jack the Ripper, everybody who ever got into true crime has read about that, because there's very few super famous murderers that got away with it, that they never caught, and that's what makes them so fascinating. So having a cool story about that, stylized with actors and stuff, like this was right up my alley at the time. It's a little aged now, but I still enjoyed it, and I still
yeah.
appreciate the time period and the because these movies usually bore the hell out of me. I usually hate Victorian era.
I think Mike would agree with that.
Movies.
Me too.
I usually just fucking hate them. I'll be honest. And
Mike too.
this is a rare exception. Yeah, it's a rare exception that keeps me interested. So it has bonus points for that.
They really knocked it out of the park with the atmosphere and just the.
Well, some shots
the
look right
settings
off the
and-
comic book page. It's beautiful.
It's well shot, and it just looks really good.
But Mike,
Well, I was gonna say, like, I'm on the same page as Tad with that stuff. I even said that to Brandy last night when we were watching this. Like, I don't normally like period films, Victorian age and whatnot.
if you want to punish Mike, let's go watch Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh man,
Anne of Green Gables.
Sorry.
yeah, because they're pretty boring. But I think, and I always crack the joke to people too, that the reason why I don't like that stuff because I obsess about hygiene, and all I can think about is where are they going to the bathroom? Where are they taking showers at? Where's
Everybody
the
has
indoor
to
plumbing?
stink. Yeah,
Anywhere they can.
Exactly right.
So bad.
But I think but I realized, I think last night especially, I realized it's more than that. I mean, I'll keep saying that joke, but
Right.
but it's more than that. I think I have such a disconnect. Like if I watch a movie from like, that takes place in the 50s. I mean, yes, I wasn't alive in the 50s, but it's still a society that I can kind of sort of relate to, as far as technology and what was going on at the times. But that's just too far back for me. It's so disconnected from what I know that it's hard for me. That's what makes it hard for me to watch. Is I'm just so disconnected from all the characters, and then especially add on accents to that. I'm done. But this film, yes, I mean I saved it for last out of the 3 films because of those reasons. But it's like what you guys were saying. It's visually captivating. I definitely got into the story because the whole Jack the Ripper true crime thing, and I love alternate takes on historical events and whatnot, and especially with this being an unsolved crime, kind of get you thinking on different theories and whatnot. But the cast is great. I mean, I still love Johnny Depp. I don't care how much people think he's played out. I will still watch him in anything.
Mike does not care how many women he beats. Let it be clear, he loves Johnny Depp.
Well, I care about
He
that.
doesn't care if he is Jack the Ripper.
But this movie's also freaking gruesome. It's got some great effects, and that obviously will keep me interested. That one freaking neck slice.
Oh fuck!
Where you're just
they just pull her head back, and you're like,
it's not one of those where like the effect is right there. They fake a slice, and she leans back, and then blood spurts out with a perfectly gaping wound.
No.
You see the flesh rip apart as her head goes back, and it's disgusting. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So the fact that they did not hold back from the gore aspect from this too is awesome. So I like this movie. Is it going to be one that I will watch it again anytime soon? No, because I haven't watched it obviously since I saw it in the theater. This is the first time seeing it since then.
20 years ago almost.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but still, it's a great film. Great film, well directed. There's just little things that I was digging on. Like there's that one weird transition shot where it's close up on grapes, but you're seeing blood flow through it, and they're beating like hearts. I thought that was really cool. It was a really cool imagery. So a lot of cool stuff like that, and just how dark, especially this being like a Hollywood film, right? This being so dark and disgusting and gross, and really, I feel like it captures a lot of the what it was actually like during that era.
You can also tell how far crime scene investigation has come because there was like a time lapse with that first murder. I think like 127 people like walked through that crime scene just while that dead hooker was on the ground. You're just like, what the hell are these people doing?
And what's cool is they tell you that again through imagery, like that it's that cool shot of where the dead body's laying there perfectly still, and it's showing in fast speed of the police coming up, and then people walking through the scene, and more police coming up. God knows, hours and hours of people walking back and forth before the head investigator shows up to
just contaminating the living shit out
exactly. I totally picked up on that the second they did that shot, and it was a great way of
you ever notice that. And I almost thought this, I dug it when I first saw the movie, but the second time around I thought it was just like, okay, this is getting a little hokey. You ever notice, like, when Ian Holm is doing his thing, when you see him as the Ripper, he's got like those blackout eye lenses on.
Yeah.
I was just okay. I didn't know how I felt about that the second time around. Yep. It was just like, okay, yes, it does make him look more sinister, but I mean, he's not a demon. He's just a regular man. There's one episode, there's one part in the movie where he's talking to Johnny Depp and Depp is on to him, and it's so blatant. He closes his eyes as like kind of like a sigh, and then he opens them again, and they're like just his eyeballs are just like jet black, and I'm just like, oh god,
that's what the ring will do to you.
Me wants it.
So I only really have one gripe, and I knew something was wrong, but until Tina pointed it out, this might be like the worst poster of all the fucking posters. I hate it.
Oh, it's just one of those faces, pretty faces posters. That's all it is.
This poster sucks.
It's from that era, man.
Yep.
Where posters were just like the actors' faces on a poster. Yeah. Because that's all that sells your movie. Stupid.
I'm surprised it wasn't from Johnny Depp's backside and he's looking over his shoulder. That kind of pose.
Yep,
that's the Avengers poster.
Abagnale is on the case.
Luckily, they avoided that sort of habit of that time of like inserting like new metal music into old movies.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Yeah. So
we got that at the end credits. A Marilyn Manson song.
Yeah, we did, but they avoided it during the movie, so that's okay.
Yes, I that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when they put like a rap song in like a Victorian or whatever movie.
Something that doesn't match in any way.
Exactly. Right. Tarantino did that in Django, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Okay, cool. Oh, do you have something else?
No, it's great. That's pretty good.
Sweet. Okay, Tad, what's our next movie we're going to discuss?
Our next movie is pretty deranged because it's deranged.
This is where the worst begins. This is where we must stop. For beyond is the work of madness. Death! The nightmare of insane murder and lingering death. Deranged. For Mary, it was only the beginning. For Christine, it was already too late. For Dolly, the worst was yet to come. And only Mrs. Cobb knew what he would do next.
I really love you, Mary.
Sometimes you don't want to believe what you see, but sometimes it's true. The story of a trail of butchery so brutal that newspapers refuse to print its horrifying details. When the horror becomes unbearable, it is too late to scream.
Okay, Deranged, also known as Deranged Confessions of a Necrophile, released in 1974, directed by Jeff Gillen and Alan Omsby, written by Alan Omsby. It is about a deranged rural farmer becomes a grave robber and murderer after the death of his possessive mother, whose corpse he keeps, among others, as his companion in a decaying farmhouse. So I have never seen this. I've seen that title, the poster and the title treatment is really fucking cool in the poster. Classic, like flowy text. Love it. So it gets an A+ from the font side from me. But yeah, this one is definitely, I would say, as far as what I know about Ed Gein, it definitely felt the most influence, more so than like the biggies like Psycho and Texas Chainsaw, where people are automatically think of Ed Gein. This one is more on the nose, I would say. An older farmer guy who is in love with his mom and possessive, and when she passes, he digs her up and keeps the corpse, and then he continues doing that and collecting these people. And there's a part where he brings a waitress from the bar, a bartender, home with him, and she sees the corpses and freaks out, obviously.
What a weirdo.
Yeah, it was a interesting movie. It's not something I'm going to throw on again, but I'll say starting off, when I started watching it, I didn't love it, and it got better. Yeah. I thought Ezra Cobb was, Robert Blossom was pretty great lead.
I think he's great.
Definitely unnerving. Like, he just nails it. Makes me uncomfortable the whole movie, which is what he's supposed to be doing. So this is a first watch for me. Like I said, it's not. I think it's just because of the subject matter. It's not something I throw on often.
It's
not that
cheapness of it.
That
low budget.
That adds to it, I think.
Yeah, I think certain parts of it, like I don't think his the mom's performance is so great. So when she finally dies, I'm okay with it. But watching him throughout it's pretty fascinating.
Is it really 3 hours?
What?
That's what IMDb says.
IMDb is on drugs. What the hell?
Crap,
I think it was less than an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's like an hour 27 or something like that.
Wow. Okay, sorry to interrupt there.
No,
freaked out.
No,
it's that good. You didn't even realize it was 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. What did you guys think?
I think that Robert Blossom's performance and just the way he says, yes'm and no'm, and he's
that's
got
where
like
you got
these,
it from.
He's got like these little touches where he sticks his bottom, his bottom lip out. He's this perpetual little boy in this middle-aged man. And it's just like whenever he sticks his bottom lip out like that, because whenever us kids would do that when we were young, my grandmother would always make us laugh. She'd say a pigeon's gonna fly by and shit on it.
Yep.
But it's just he's got like these little idiosyncrasies that are just hilarious. I mean, I had watched this once for the first time a couple years back. And watching it for the second time for the podcast, I've liked this movie even more. When he's at the bar and he's never drank before and he's trying to, get in good with that waitress and he has one whiskey sour and then you show how time's elapsed and he drank 5 of these and he is just fucking smoked by the end of the night, right? And, it's like, Mama, I'm in love. Oh, man. It's, for as disturbing as this movie is, I think it's freaking hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
This movie is hysterical. And I don't know. It's like, if you miss the comedy in this, I feel sorry for you. But it's almost like it reminded me a little bit the way Toby Hooper said. It's like, I think a lot of people miss the dark comedy in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one. So that's why he made Texas Chainsaw 2 just completely over the top. So you would finally get the humor. I think this is the perfect mix of disturbing and humor, the way he's turning that, what is that, Victrola? When he's got his corpse face on, just, I mean, really, really disturbing. I'm a big fan of this this movie this second time around. Yeah,
Could you
gets better every
imagine
time I see it.
those who saw it in 1974 that didn't have any knowledge of what happened in Wisconsin? You know, like this movie's probably fucked them up bad.
Yeah, stay the fuck out of Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah, the look of the corpses was really cool. Like when you just, I feel like sometimes, especially movies of that era, like when they dig up dead bodies and stuff, they don't look anything realistic. And we get that shot towards the end when the waitress goes back to his place and he has the corpses all sitting around the table and they're rotted and just creepy as shit. It's really cool. Like, I don't know.
Pretty gross.
Tom Savini.
Doesn't surprise me.
Like his second film.
Wow.
Alan Ormsby, the writer and director of this movie, also was like the head special effects, and Savini was his kind of protege through this movie and a movie called Death Dream. But I feel like, and this is based on Savini's book Grand Illusions, that Savini kind of took over the effects work more in Deranged. Like he was kind of Alan's understudy on Death Dream, and then kind of, especially, you know, with Alan doing double duty on this movie, that I feel like Savini took over the effects more. But yeah, those corpses
Really cut his teeth.
yeah, those corpses are awesome. I really like the look of the mother when he first digs her up. Just that, like that almost porcelain looking bluish, grayish tinged skin. Face. It's just so disgusting.
Like a dead Smurf.
Yeah. I got plenty more to say, but I'll let Jason go.
It's not a typical look of a corpse either, so it's really a neat version. No, it's I've seen it before and it's great. And I mean, who names their kid Roberts?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Mr. and Mrs. Blossom.
That's where it all started.
It must be.
Quite possibly the most disturbing soup scene I've ever seen in a film.
So disgusting and hilarious at the same time. Like Brandy was laughing her ass off when he was trying to scoop the blood back into her mouth.
What is hot? It's warm. It's warm. Eat it. Oh,
and he's
so
like,
gross.
and he's just going, no.
Yes, gonorrhea, syphilis, and death, or what was it?
Yep.
She kept saying to him, the wages of sin are gonorrhea, syphilis, and death. We had like 2 syphilis movies, you know, in this. I noticed.
We should have done a whole episode on syphilis.
Yes.
I'm good.
The clap.
Yes, we know you have a lot to say about this. Just go. Just
Are you done? Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm
It's awesome.
done. I
agree.
got syphilis in, so I'm ready. I'm done. I'm finished.
Andy has syphilis.
Okay, so here we go. Here's my take
Don't tell
on
Danielle.
Deranged. I love this movie. This is probably my favorite Ed Gein story movie. One of my favorite movies of the 70s. I love this movie. I have a huge history with this movie. I remember when I first heard about this movie and was discovering this movie was in the pages of Gore Zone magazine, and it was impossible to find. Like, it was out of print on VHS. It had a very small run on VHS back in the day. And in the late 80s, early 90s, Film Threat magazine started their own video line and somehow managed to get the rights to this movie and did a release of it. Didn't even get my hands on that before it went out of print. I managed to get a bootleg of this from some 16 millimeter print projected version of this movie. We're watching it, the VHS version of this rip over and over and over again. By the time they finally released it on DVD by MGM on the Midnight Movies 2-pack with Motel Hell, I was shocked to see that the blood was actually red, because I had watched the bootleg version over and over again, and the blood was brown, which was kind of more disgusting. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this movie is creepy and disturbing, but hilarious. When he is standing there by the truck, and his friend's telling him that he needs to find a woman, and he brings up the one woman his mother told him to look up, and he's like, I know I could trust her, and his friend's like, how do you know you could trust her? But she's fat. she's fat. He just keeps shouting that. And it's so funny. And just his looks are I wish he would have starred in more movies. He's got a ton of credits. And because of this movie, I am a Robert Blossom fan that I want to find more of his stuff. I mean, he was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He was in Christine, Home Alone. It was probably one of his bigger roles that he's had.
Escape from Alcatraz. He cut his fingers off.
Yep. Escape from Alcatraz. Quick and the Dead. Sam Raimi's Quick and the Dead.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was one of his final films. So, yeah, I think he's just awesome. It's just a bummer he never got to be the star of other films like this one. But the cheapness of the movie, I mean, it's very low budget, but I think it works on behalf of the film. It really drives home some of the sleaziness and disgustingness of Ezra's lifestyle after his mom died. And I mean, yes, it's a work of fiction. It is at that time, up until like maybe the last couple decades when they were doing more biopics on serial killers, and they came out with a couple of decent. The one with Steve Railsback is probably the most accurate to the Ed Gein story.
I like that one.
Yeah, I do too. So this one, it doesn't have things like the stuff about his brother and he kills 3 people in this movie where Ed Gein only really killed 2. Whatever. It's just it's for the story. It's still a work of fiction. But I just really love this movie. Gosh, what else can I say about it? The woman who's fat, the heifer, Maureen Selby, is played by Marion Waldman, who was Mrs. Mack in the house mother in the original Black Christmas, which was directed by Bob Clark. Cool. And Bob Clark is an uncredited producer of this movie. Because Bob Clark worked a lot with Alan back in the day, and you're going to learn more about that in Insane's Picks. So when it came time to make this movie, Alan took over in the director's chair, and Bob Clark was producing it. But when Bob Clark saw like how disturbing the content of the movie is and how much comedy they still try to inject into it, he's like, "Yeah, I'll produce it, but I don't want my name on it." So, I love the score. I love just the whole organ music through the entire thing. I love the use of the narrator in this movie. It's so like stage-like, where he's like sitting on the end of the bed while Robert's Blossom is grieving over his dead mother or whatever, and and he is not in the scene, but he's there in the scene talking to us, telling us everything that's going on. I love the narrating aspect. I even stole that for one of our short films. Where it starts off on the narrator and then it pans over to the scene, and I just love all those moments with the narrator.
You do like the narrator stuff?
Yeah. Well, you don't?
I'm unsure. It's a point of contention.
It's cheesy and hokey and weird, and like especially the guy, because he's very 70s looking. But
do you need it?
But it's you probably don't need it even. Yeah. And number one rule in filmmaking: show don't tell.
Yeah.
And the narrator tells us a lot.
Yeah.
And it was probably thrown in there for budgetary reasons, but I think it's really imaginative. It's something you don't see. Definitely didn't see at the time.
It's not a normal narrator situation.
No.
He's physically walks into the scenes. Yeah.
And I also feel like it maybe adds more to that documentary feel to it as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because this guy is like a documentarian talking, a talking head within a documentary. So, Brandy also thought it was really funny in the dinner scene where he was using a human skull to hold the muffins. Yeah. And also on the wall, just a random arm nailed to the wall. But then again, that was also, Ed Wood. He would, if you could say anything about Ed Gein. Oh my God.
It's close.
If you could say anything about Ed Gein, he was not wasteful. he repurposed everything. So, yeah, but if you could find this movie, 2 thumbs up. It's on Prime, so I would highly recommend checking it out. I've got to get the Blu-ray of it though. I still desperately need the Blu-ray.
Why do you need this in 1080p when it was obviously filmed with someone's video camera?
6 or 7p.
I'll tell you what, I didn't think I needed anything better than that bootleg, but then as soon as I saw that the blood was red, I'm like, oh, okay.
You definitely got that like Dawn of the Dead, Savini, crayon red, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the butcher scene when the blood is hitting the ground. Oh, it's just that it took Savini a while to realize that stage blood does not film blood red like other fake blood. And there's
going down that girl he's gutting.
Yeah, very disturbing shot. Him gutting that girl, and then when the family and the police show up and find the girl hanging in there,
just hanging out.
Yeah,
hanging out of her.
Oh. Okay, so that's Deranged. Jason, what's our last film we're going to talk about?
The last film we're going to talk about today is from 2013. It is The Sacrament.
You guys ready? Watch it. We've been to some of the most chaotic, war-torn places in the world, but never for something as bizarre as this.
Here we are. Welcome to Eden Parish.
You guys built all this?
Father had a vision, and we built heaven here on earth.
Who is Father?
He's the guy that started all of this.
Can we speak with him at some point?
He agreed to sit for an interview tonight at the gathering.
It's been pretty amazing. Everyone we've talked to seems to feel that this is everything they ever wanted, and they all credit you for that.
Oh, I don't deserve the credit. You come down here and I'll give you a place to live. I'll give you a job. I'll give you a bed. These people are my family, my children. And when you write this up, just know that you're dealing with their lives.
Aren't those the guides? What are they doing with guns?
You don't know what's really going on here. This place is not what it seems.
Hey, what's happening? These people want to leave. They have their suitcases packed. I have no idea what to do.
Sam, do not get involved in this!
Please take my daughter.
What?
We can't let them go back to New York. No, this is the last sacrament.
Hey! Hey!
How many more people can fit in this thing?
No! What is this?
Take the camera. I want you to film this. It's important.
It's fine.
Take it. Take it. Take it.
Fix me, Jesus, fix me.
Found footage reveals the events surrounding an investigative team's visit to a remote commune led by a dangerous fanatic who maintains an iron grip on his followers. Directed by Ty West. We're all fans of Ty West.
Mm-hmm.
Screenplay, Ty West and Eli Roth. We're fans of those guys and everyone in the movie.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a found footage movie. And it's fucked.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was very entertained. I dig this film.
Is this anybody's first time watch?
It is mine. I've been wanting to get around to it, and I'm glad I was actually forced to now. I was always on my radar because it's I know what it's based on, and really really unnerving shit.
Oh yeah, I love this movie. I think we watched it for a year-ender back when it came out, back in 2013, and that's the last time I've seen it.
Yep.
So I was really excited at the idea of getting to rewatch it again, and I still really love it. It's an interesting combination, though, right? You got Ty West as the director, written by Ty West and Eli Roth, produced by Eli Roth. You couldn't get more opposite ends of the filmmaking spectrum than those two. You know, Mr. Subtle Mr. Mr. Subtle filmmaker Ty West versus throw everything right in your face Eli Roth.
Yeah,
maybe they helped
but it worked well.
counterbalance each other.
Yeah, it worked well. Yeah, just I just
hate this movie. Makes me feel like an AJ Boehm fanboy. No, anyone else?
You should
Just
be.
me.
Nothing
He
wrong
was
with that.
great.
Yeah, he's great. All of them are. Joe Slomberg's great. Yeah, everybody's convincing in the the found footage, and I am very split on found footage, but making it like a Vice documentary was just so perfect for the time period. Like that was right when Vice was becoming a big thing and made it. I'm surprised sort of how they could use a real like news source.
Yeah,
was
like
weird.
that was wow.
Can I ask you guys a question? And maybe because it's the Vice thing, it didn't me, but I'm just posing the question. Does the fact that this movie is scored take you out of the found footage reality of it? Because you normally don't get that with found footage movies.
I'm an idiot, so like I never once thought about it until now. So
not until you mentioned it. It never really. I guess it didn't really take me out of it because,
and that's a good thing, right? Because you're not really supposed to notice
Yeah.
that stuff.
And we're watching a Vice documentary, technically, not so it would be finished and produced, right?
That's what I was thinking. That maybe that was why they went with the score. And again, I thought the score was great. Even it's just you just don't normally see something. You don't normally get a found footage movie with a score.
I think maybe, and the other half is that the quality of the camera work was better than shaky cam shit.
Yeah,
like it was definitely not a
Like a steady
shaky
cam.
cam movie. So
it is where it needed to
felt
be.
more cinematic. Yeah. So I think because
Which Vice is known for is their like cinematic storytelling through news production. Like they're known for their high end. They can make like the dumbest news story look pretty. Is sort of what they get mocked for now.
I think that helped.
I was more really impressed by the performances of the sister did a really good job, but the father,
Gene Jones.
Which how weird is that? The guy's name is Gene Jones.
yeah,
He was
and we're
so
talking, and we're
good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's just the way that he. The way that he delivered lines, the way he kind of moved his lips, it was everything that he was saying was very deliberate and very trying to make you calm. It's just because it's just like he
And in control. He was always in control during all of his speeches. Like he controlled that. He controlled that group. He controlled the conversation. He controlled. He controlled the interview.
He will twist the narrative into what he wants it to be, which is what a good con man will do.
Right. Sort of made me think of some politicians that we deal with right now, but not quite
I knew
as
it was coming.
Yeah, but definitely
it's
in
a
that
mental.
Way,
It's this very mental mindfuck sleight of hand, and it's what makes it even more sleazy. It's just these people. These people are easy prey because they're very desperate and they're very
naive and
and they're
helpless.
looking for answers. They're looking for answers, they feel like there's no way out of like addiction or just depression. And here's this guy who's got this gift of gab, and he's using religion as a platform, which he's already kind of got like sort of one his foot in the door, so to speak, with that angle. And then he just twists it to his narrative to apparently sleep with this sister that they're trying to find, and it's just man, what a piece of dog shit. And then just watching the cyanide scene, I mean, it's just like, I know that people, this is where the phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" comes from.
Yep.
Just watch the one that bothered me the most. I mean, and I won't say everything, but the one that bothered me the most was the syringe filled with the cyanide Kool-Aid, and they're giving it to the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Ugh.
Like,
I mean, it just tears your guts out, man.
Well, yeah, with a baby, because it's like literally helpless. It cannot even defend itself or has no chance, where everybody else at least is making, for the most part, is making a decision, even if it's a heavily influenced and, you know, being lied to, and a bad decision for the most part. A baby you think of as the most innocent, then cannot, you know, defend itself at all. So
was it that one was the worst, or was it what happens to the little girl they were supposed to take with them? That one got to me.
Ooh, yeah. Or maybe her just shooting up her brother, and he's flopping around in the chair.
Oh, that yeah. I was going to mention that one too.
Mom and Dad love you. Come on, let's just go home.
And just a one take shot, and it just hangs on them, and it feels like maybe there's a moment where she thinks she realizes what wrong thing she did, but she doesn't. And
then
just put, you know, I'm watching that scene. I put myself
things.
I put myself in that place where it's like, oh my God, like the panic that he was going through, because he isn't dead yet, but he knows he's going to be dying from whatever she stuck in him. And there's no way out of that situation now for him. That was a super intense scene for me.
This movie, you know, it's got a lot of tough things to in it. And as I was watching, I was just like, I don't know what's tougher, watching this cinematically or watching this knowing that things just like this happened in Jonestown, Guinea. And it wasn't just like 75 to 100 people. We're talking over 900 people dead on the ground, women, children, all because of some crazed religious fanatic.
Yeah, cults and religion are two things that scare the shit out of me, and I am not in any way, shape, or form religious. I'm very much an atheist, but you know, this is exactly why I sort of am against organized religion. I'm not saying, and I want to make it clear too, that I'm not saying like all organized religion is a cult like this, you know, but the power to use this for bad is just as scary as it is to use, you know, and it's more scary that they can use it for bad than good. Because you see, like, you know, some of these other guys that I won't mention names that have like huge mansions and their own private jets and shit, and they're convincing people, you know, to give them money, and it's like, you know, they're not quite killing people with Kool-Aid, but they're just as fucking evil.
Maybe
they got televised Kool-Aid.
Maybe I should have just talked to Tina about this instead of bringing it up on a podcast that we're recording, but she didn't. So we're watching this movie, and she doesn't say anything, and just one time during this whole movie she says something, and I think it was around when they shoot the little girl that they're trying to get rid of, but and then she says, I hate this fucking movie, and that's all she says for the whole movie. And I'm like, well, and so like I've been thinking about it since then, and we watched it, and I'm like, I think yes, all the things you're saying with the kid stuff is the most awful shit in the world, and that this happened. But like, and then Todd was kind of saying there, like, I don't know. Oh, well, Tina's pretty a religious person, and like, this movie really isn't nice to those who believe. And so like, I felt bad for that too. Like, I don't want us to just, I know we're not shrugging that off, but like, I don't know, it changed the way I started thinking about it a little bit. That I know this is just pointing out what one person did with this thing that for evil, but like the whole movie, he's saying good things, and everyone in this commune is saying good things and all God things that are good, and yet this bad stuff happened, and I don't know. I felt bad, and I didn't know how to feel about it, and like I don't want to just bash religion because, you know, it works for a lot of people, and it's
right.
I'm happy for that, you know.
Well, yeah, beware of false prophets, because I think some of the worst predators in the world are the ones that are wearing, you know, either badges or clerical collars.
So maybe it sucks that this movie gives religion a bad name, I guess. I don't know. Just that he uses it for bad, I guess.
I don't think it was, I totally see what you're saying.
Right, and I probably should have just talked to Tina about this instead of bringing it up. But I'm sorry, Tina.
I don't think that was the filmmaker's intent to make you question your belief or question your religion or anything like that. It feels more like an actual document of this one particular bad scenario, and unfortunately, there's definitely dramatized in the media more bad scenarios concerning cults and religions than good scenarios.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, the things they were saying made sense. Things that they were saying and that the father was preaching made sense. And it looks like it could work. Not for me, because there was no televisions.
Right. It just sucks that it also came along with some of the worst things that ever happened to humanity with these poor kids.
I think the big turning point in why this didn't work was, again, the one man, the father, and that scene where you are kind of seeing a little bit what's going on behind closed doors. There's obviously the sister who's came here to be clean and have this clean life obviously is fucked up on something, and then obviously is going behind closed doors with the father. So there's a darker agenda of the father. I don't know, but I also don't know. I think there was some of it, a lot of it that he believed in himself. I don't, or else why did it end up the way it ended up?
I'll tell you what, though, it got as intense as fuck once shit started hitting the fan. Oh my gosh, that's when the
literally
found
the
footage
next day
was
literally when the sun came up.
Oh,
when the girl handed him that note and he opened it,
your gut
it just made my arm hair stand up. It just oh shit.
You're just waiting for it, and the interview with father sort of gets more and more tense when he starts sort of turning it around on them, and he's like, "This is what the media wants, guys," and making them out to be the villains for asking questions. And I would say it's more so. This is more so a look of cultism than it is religion, because there's organized religion that is very different from cults. So
it's.
Ooh, tough. Whatever.
I mean, the red flag is, when all these people are just around calling him, father,
blindly following.
And just they, they're not allowed to question anything.
We can't forget though. You're talking about Eli Roth and on the different spectrum. Ty West directed Cabin Fever 2, and that is extremely over the top, gory, and disgusting. So it does make sense to me. I can't believe
at the same time Ty West has denounced that film. He hates that.
He got his name off of it, but not so much because of the gore, just because of some of the stuff that the studio wanted. But it's a shame because he was my dude for a long time, and he was coming up, and the last thing he did was 4 or 5 years ago now with In a Valley of Violence. And he's been doing a lot of TV work since then, but it's I don't know. I felt like he was on a long run of making fantastic films that I loved, and I hope he gets back to that instead of doing TV.
I totally agree. Yeah, felt the same way.
I'm gonna ask what everyone's favorite was.
Yeah, I mean, House of the Devil was my jam, man. I love that film.
That's a tough one. I want to say House of the Devil, but I also do really like Innkeepers.
Yeah, me too, a lot.
And I really love this one too. So I don't know.
Right, it's really tough too. I would probably still say House of the Devil is my favorite, but I'm also a Cabin Fever 2 stan. We did Cabin Fever 2 on the show, and I just gushed about how much I loved it. So I probably watched that one more than the original.
Man, I don't know. I keep trying with that one, and
I want to see his cut of it, like if they gave him the footage.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you know,
that'd be good.
we're never gonna see that because it was a studio thing and whatever. I have owned In a Valley of Violence for like 5 years on Blu-ray, and I've never watched it. Sorry, Ty West. It
He
needs
does
to be.
listen.
Yeah, it needs to be one of those unwrapped ones, but it's not a horror. I think it's a Western with Travolta.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing about Gene Jones and his performance, because not only was he convincing as hell and was awesome in the role, but like, yeah, I read on IMDb that big interview scene, they did it in like one take, and it's like a 17-minute dialogue
Really?
scene. Yeah. So like, wow.
And it flowed. It just felt so natural. The way
Totally
he did.
natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And also learned that a couple of retired Harlem Globetrotters played background roles in the movie. So sold. I love the Harlem Globetrotters.
Where was Curly?
I know, right?
I want Curly in there.
He was always my favorite too. So
What else has Gene Jones done? Like, I didn't recognize him.
he doesn't have a ton of credits. I had him up here just a second ago.
God,
He was in Hateful Eight. He was in No Country for Old Men. This guy's got some fucking bangers on his list, though.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah.
Bug.
Oh, I love that movie. We got to figure out
Bug's Life.
figure out an episode to rewatch Bug.
He's on Chappelle's Show.
Awesome. Well, cool. So yes, The Sacrament, again, another highly recommended one. And that concludes our film discussion on the show. But we still have more Attack of the Killer podcast to come, because we're gonna take a quick break so you can learn about the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. That's right, our very own podcast network that continues to grow and grow like the fungus in your toenail. And with a bunch of shows now.
Even a brand new true crime show.
That's right, called
Live, Laugh, Kill. It's good.
With
Colby Keefe.
And his wife. It's a very awesome, and speaking of true crime, it's a true crime podcast, so give it a listen. You can check it out at thepfbn.com. So why don't you listen about the podcast network here real quick, and when we come back, it'll be segments time here on Attack of the Killer podcast. Be right back.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
And we are back. It is time for the segments portion of the show, starting off as we always do with Jason N giving us some shout outs.
It's time for shout outs! Shout outs! Shout outs! Shout outs! Shout outs!
Okay, let's start over on our Facebook page. We just asked, what your favorite true crime horror movies were, and we got some answers. We got Brian Clark starting her off. He says, the loopy-ass Zodiac Killer from 1971 is one of, if not the only, serial killer movie to have the dubious honor of coming out while the killer was still active.
That's awesome.
Exploitation movies based on a real event or cultural phenomenon are often said to be released before the ink on the headlines is dry, but these guys didn't even wait until the headlines were printed. Also, probably the only serial killer movie to spend a not insignificant amount of time on showing the killer playing with his pet bunnies who command him to kill during the cheapest satanic ritual ever committed to film. Then we got Terry Turford. She says The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Original and remake are both great.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
And then she says, also, I could go down a rabbit hole of true crime documentaries, but while those are truly horrifying, they aren't really horror movies. Agreed. I am fortunately not one of those who are addicted to all of the true crime shows.
Yeah, you're not.
Like
I
you.
dig them.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Tina too. It's all day. It's crazy. It's awesome.
You should watch them.
We got Jason Zbornik says Henry.
Yeah.
And anything involving cults, which is a lot. And then we got our pal, the Reebster, Mike Reeb. He says The Town That Dreaded Sundown and The Deliberate Stranger with Mark Harmon as Ted Bundy.
Whoa, I don't know about
Both
that
of these
one.
movies
I've
have
seen that.
scenes from have stuck with me for decades. Mark Harmon's awesome.
Yeah. Summer School.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you haven't seen it, Mike?
No, I've never even heard of it.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
But I will definitely have to check it out because Mark Harmon rules. So does Summer School. I'm just going to keep talking about Summer School. Chainsaw and Dave, man. What's that guy's name?
Cool. Thanks for stalling. I had heck of a time getting over here. And then over on our Facebook.
Dean Cameron, by the way.
Yes. And our Facebook group edition. Hey, Brian Clark's back.
Hey.
He says, The Mad Butcher, 1971, starring Victor Buono, who was also King Tut in the 1966 Batman series. It's a black comedy based partially on the cases of two German cannibal serial killers, Karl Denke and Fritz Haarmann, who sometimes dispose of their victims via a butcher shop. Seen that, Mike?
No, I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually seen it.
Figures. And then,
What's that supposed to be?
I don't know. And then lastly, over there, we got our attacker, Peter Parker. Not Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
He says, An American Crime from 2007. I don't know what that is.
Oh, I don't know
That's
that either.
one of them weird German movies it is.
with the title American in it.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
we haven't seen.
Yeah. All right, you got me, Andy. Thanks. And then nothing on Instagram, but over on Twitter, we have attacker Chris Cook at Counting Cook says, I'm not sure if many will consider it horror, but 7 really messed me up.
I was wondering if 7 would get brought up.
Well, it just did. Thanks, Chris. He says, I may have watched it a little young, and I've always been on the side of arguing that it is both a crime drama and horror film. What do you guys think?
Horror. I count
I'd
it.
say horror.
Yeah, I'd say horror. I mean,
Nasty film, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
You
ain't gonna see that on Lifetime.
No.
I have two suggestions. I mean, it's
Honorable
not.
mentions?
Well, it's a crime film. It's a true crime film, but Wonderland with Val Kilmer, because the murders that took place in you can see like the LA true crime footage on YouTube, and it's nasty. They say John might have been involved, but I mean, granted, he did have a Louisville Slugger hanging between his legs, so I mean, you probably beat him to death with that.
Yeah, it's a good movie though.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Another one that I want to mention because it actually ties into serial killing. Did you ever see the made-for-TV special called "I Know My First Name Is Steven"?
Nope.
Long story short, it's a kid that gets abducted in the early 70s, and this guy holds him hostage for 7 years. And basically this kid is this guy's sex slave. And he brings another 6-year-old kid in while he's still with this guy. And all the time his parents are looking for him. And he sees this 6-year-old kid get brought in, and he says, I can't let this kid, what happened to me happened to this kid. And he runs off, and that's the first thing he says to these police officers. I know my first name is Steven. I've been called Dennis for 7 years. Long story, trying to make this quick. Basically, the guy gets caught. He goes to trial. None of this sexual molestation stuff is mentioned, and he gets out after 7 years. Naturally, this guy tries to do it again, and he dies in jail. Steven, he has a lot of trouble in life, and he gets killed in a motorcycle accident, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the guy that did it to him should, hopefully he's in hell right now being forced to tongue fuck Satan's shit pipe. But
you paint the prettiest of pictures.
Yeah, right. But here's the weird thing, how it ties around. As big as a hero Steven was, his brother ended up being a real piece of shit because he killed 3 women and he let them burn in a car in Yosemite. Whoa. How's that for being part of a family?
Jesus.
Yeah, it's like the Stainer family. I know my first name is Steven. You can order the DVD on the Warner Archives. I remember watching it with my mother, and the part where he's running away with the little kid and he's 6 years old and he sees this car coming over the hill and he just goes, "Oh my God, that's him. He's going to come and get us." I was ready to wet my freaking pants. Oh, yeah. It's still scary because you just think, okay, we're going to get away. And then here he comes. He's supposed, and they hide and he drives by. Oh. But yeah, I know my first name is Steven. So if you want a movie to freak out the inner child in you, yeah, watch that.
Any other honorable mentions, fellas?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Oh man, I didn't put any thought in honorable mentions, but I could probably go on for hours.
Yeah. Well, all right. And remember that you still have time. You can leave us a voicemail, and we'll put that on the show. You can give us a call at 415-952-6857. That's 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us a voicemail. We'll put you on the show, and that's shout-outs.
We have a new segment here at Attack of the Killer Podcast. It's time to close your eyes and sit back and listen to the theater of your mind with Recasting with Christian Slater.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Recasting with Christian Slater, me. Now, today we're going to bring to the table 4 thespians of the highest caliber. We're going to be reciting a scene from Rob Zombie's magnum opus Halloween, remade from the immortal classic from 1978. Let's welcome our guest. Playing the role of Ronnie White is Don Knotts.
Well, thank you for having me, Christian. Fuck Andy Griffith.
Well, that's very colorful, Don. Thank you. Playing the role of Deborah Myers, direct from Eternia, coming down from Snake Mountain, is Skeletor.
Yes. I'm here. Wait, what? Deborah Myers? What?
Moving on. Playing the role of Judith Myers is former Playboy playmate Anna Nicole Smith.
I was told there's gonna be snacks.
Outstanding. And playing the role of Mike Myers needs no introduction. He's a legend in the horror business. Peter LeRae, everybody.
I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Well, let's just start moving along. I'll be reading the descriptions, and we start with Interior, Myers' house, kitchen, morning. Continuous. A clamped, cluttered mess of dirty dishes, overflowing garbage cans, and junk-cluttered counters. In the back room, an AM radio blares Frampton Comes Alive. Ronnie. Why don't you tell me to do it again? Standing over the stove, scrambling eggs, is Deborah Myers, 36. An attractive, dark-haired woman who looks far too young to be the mother of 3 children. Deborah.
Again with this. Jesus! You know I can't go. I have to dance the late shift. We need money, or haven't you noticed? What part of that can't you get through your fucking skull?
Sitting at the kitchen table waiting for breakfast, we find Deborah's current abusive loser boyfriend, Ronnie White, 48. A long-haired grease monkey with a broken left arm and a heavily bandaged right hand. Hey! Don't you disrespect me!
Oh, fuck off!
Oh, really? Fuck off! How's this? Did I mention that new waitress over at Bingo's Lounge keeps giving me the look? I guess I'll just go have to make my own fun tonight.
What the whore with the big-ass saggy monkey tits hanging down to her knees? Hey, be my guest. Jump on him and slap him around.
Next to Ronnie in the high chair is a baby nicknamed Boo.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll fuck the shit out of her.
We'll have a good fucking time.
I will.
The baby starts to cry.
Oh, nice. See what you did, you fucking loudmouth?
Deborah picks up the baby.
Come on now, Boo.
Where? All that fucker does is cry. Where? Crying shit.
Hey, newsflash, that's what babies fucking do. Crying shit. All you do is crying shit.
A teenage girl enters. Judith Myers, 16. She is dressed inappropriately for school in denim short shorts and a tube top. Ronnie checks her up and down.
I don't want...
Judith begins pouring herself a bowl of cereal.
Since when? Since now they're taking abortion. No, they're not. What are they then? I don't know. They're eggs. Can you please get your brother? Michael. Jesus! I could do that. Don't scream. Go upstairs and get him.
Judith walks out of the room, careful to flash her ass at Ronnie.
That bitch has got a nice little dumper.
What did you say?
Oh, look who's jealous. Afraid of your own daughter's ass.
Deborah throws a spatula of eggs at Ronnie.
Fucking pig.
Ronnie pauses, looks at the eggs on his shirt, smiles, and swings his arm, knocking everything off the table.
Clean it up!
Interior, Myers' house. Kitchen, morning, continuous. Deborah is picking up breakfast off the floor. The sound of upstairs commotion filters down to the kitchen.
Jesus Christ, what the hell is going on up there? Michael, what are you screaming about?
That little freak needs some serious discipline. He's like a little bitch.
You keep your hands off him. He's a sensitive kid.
Oh, give me a fucking break. He's probably a queer. Watch, I bet he grows up and cuts off his balls and changes his name to Michelle.
You know, he's still upset about another one of those cats running away.
Judith saunters into the kitchen with a shit-eating grin on her face and takes her place at the table. Michael follows behind, still wearing his mask. Before sitting down at the table, Michael kisses the baby on the head.
Hey, Boo.
Ronnie grabs the mask off of Michael's face. Take that stupid thing off! Jesus, you annoy me! Michael shoots Ronnie a dirty look. I hit you. Ronnie holds up his arm. You see this? Yeah. When this heals, I'm gonna break it again across your fucking face! And scene. Join us next time for another episode of Recasting with Christian Slater. Next up on the Attack of the Killer podcast is Insane Mike's Picks. See you next time.
Why, thank you, Christian. Yay. It's going to be a great segment. I know it. And I have to follow that. So, continuing on with my inducting people into the Insane's Picks Hall of Fame. It's a triple threat this time, going along with a movie that we've already talked about on this show this evening. I'm inducting the collaboration between Bob Clark, Jeff Gillen, and Alan Ormsby. Through their collaboration in the 1970s, they gave me some of my favorite films to come out of that era, including Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, Death Dream, Deranged, and Black Christmas. Alan Ormsby, writer, director, and makeup artist, started out as a drama student at the University of Florida, where he first met Bob Clark. They first collaborated on a tongue-in-cheek, low-budget zombie flick, and one of my favorites, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, in 1972. Alan Ormsby co-wrote the script and did a very effective job on a zero budget with doing all of the zombie makeup effects. Some of my favorite looks of zombies come from this movie. Not only that, but he also played the part of Alan, the arrogant, obnoxious theater group leader. Jeff Gillen played Jeff, the lovable smartass of the theater troupe, and the part of Anya was played by Ormsby's own then-wife, Anya Liffey. We're going to go with that. Ormsby, Gillen, and Clark's next film together was the movie Death Dream in 1974, aka Dead of Night, a Vietnam-era variation on the Monkey's Paw story. Bob Clark directed, Jeff Gillen was assistant director, and Alan Ormsby was writer and did the special effects in the movie. Both Jeff and Alan appear in the film, as well as Anya, Alan's wife, who played the young sister Kathy. Next up for Ormsby was the film we discussed on the show, Deranged: Confessions of a Necrophile, in 1974, which he co-wrote and co-directed with Jeff Gillen. Alan also handled the makeup effects chores, along with then unknown Tom Savini, who also worked with Ormsby on Death Dream. Bob Clark's role in this film was only a producer, but his name was taken off the film due to the dark subject matter mixed with the twisted comedy. Bob Clark would go on to make another one of my favorite horror films from the 1970s, Black Christmas, but alas, without Alan or Jeff. Black Christmas was released in 1974, the same year as Deranged, so it may have been that both productions were going on at the same time, why neither were highly involved with the other's films. Oddly enough, 1974 was also the release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The same year, another movie that was influenced by Ed Gein, released the same year as Deranged. And then everybody always talks about how Black Christmas was the first slasher before Halloween, and Halloween was influenced by it, blah, 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 whatever. Alan would also have other contributions to horror outside of working with Bob Clark. He wrote the screenplay for the 1982 remake of The Cat People. He did zombie makeup for the underwater Nazi zombie film classic Shockwaves from 1977, and would later go on to co-write and co-direct the 1991 film Popcorn, although he has gone uncredited in the movie. Alan's own son Ethan is even in the film Popcorn as the two-headed moviegoer. Bob Clark was also a producer on Popcorn, and I thought this was going to be the big horror reunion of Alan and Bob when I first read about it back in the day in Fangoria magazine, but alas, not so much, as Alan was replaced as director 3 weeks into shooting, and Bob Clark took his name off of the film as well. All three of them would work together in 1983 on Porky's 2 the Next Day, which Bob directed. Alan co-wrote the script, and Jeff was second unit coordinator. Of course, Bob Clark would go down in history as the director of A Christmas Story, where he brought his old friend Jeff Gillen back one more time, this time playing the store Santa Claus. Now, unfortunately, Jeff Gillen passed away from a heart attack in 1991, and then Bob died in 2007 in a car accident. Luckily, we still have Alan Ormsby with us, and maybe one day we'll get him to reprise his role from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Only if polyester suits make a comeback. Here's hoping. So that's my Insanes inductees into the Insanes Picks Hall of Fame for this episode, the triple threat of Bob Clark, Jeff Gillen, and Alan Ormsby.
Perfect timing on that induction.
That's weird how that worked out.
Yep.
So that's it, folks. That is the end of the episode. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you had fun with this one, even though we went a bit dark here and there throughout the episode. Great way to kick off a new year.
Yeah.
Oh, but it'll get better. It'll get better. Thanks again for listening. Thanks to the attackers out there who are making the show happen, making it possible. If it wasn't for you guys, who knows where we would be right now. We'd probably be in dark alleys somewhere, hooking for nickels. Just like in From Hell.
Oh, right, that movie.
Yeah. So until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you on the next episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast. Bye-bye.
Oh no, could this be the end of? Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 It's the end of the show. Bye. See you next time.
Hey, it's Jason. Show's over. I got this message from Insane Mike. He didn't have the heart to come and tell you guys this himself. He needs your help, and he's a fragile guy. He needs you to know that you're behind him and you're on his side. So look, he wanted me to come and say a few words at the end of the show here. So first, thanks for listening. Second, thanks for subscribing. And third, head over to jointheattackers.com and find out how you can support Insane Mike and become an attacker today.